I, like many of you, have been stuck in quarantine for months at this point. So when a friend asked if I wanted to go on a road trip, I said, let's go. After doing the boring stuff, like packing and annoying the driver for 8 hours as he drove, we eventually arrived at Mentone, a small town in Alabama located on top of a mountain. Our cabin was pretty cool, and we did some fun stuff. Like, we went to go see this waterfall. No, obviously this is not a waterfall, but seriously, when we got there, this was the first thing we saw, and we were so confused, but the actual waterfall is right over here. So it was actually pretty nice. Mostly, our trip was just a lot of hiking and exploring the woods. And it was really nice because we ended up finding a lot of cool stuff. Like, Cody found some mushrooms. And some more. And some more. Oh, and I can never forget the time that he hacked away at a log for 30 minutes with a knife, and in the middle of that time tried to run it over with his car so that he could keep some coral mushrooms that were on the log. Here's the time lapse. In the end, we did get it, and it was a really triumphant moment, so that was pretty cool, honestly. We also went to a state park, and we got distracted by a cat that we found in a little lot, like a parking lot. It was really sweet, and I wanted to take it home, but I couldn't.
State Park Lodge. How may I help you?
Hi, I just had a question. Do you work in the office here for the camping, right?
This is the lodge.
Alright, so if I am in the right spot, there's do you know of a cat that lives around here? Sort of a weird question, but.
A cat?
Yeah.
There's orange. A bunch of them around here. Why?
Oh, there's an orange one. Do you know that one?
It probably belongs at there's one that stays at the office all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's that one. Does it have a name?
Well, it has two names. It's called Ginger and it's called Garfield for the time, so.
Really? Okay, just because we found it, and I don't know, I love this cat, and I just wanted to know what its name was, so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Bye-bye.
Bye. So it was difficult, but we had to say goodbye to Ginger. Bye, Ginger. And if anyone happens to visit DeSoto State Park, then I would recommend stopping by the lodge parking and say hi for me. Aside from our various adventures, what I enjoyed most was just getting to be in a different space for a change and being around another person. Even the little things like cooking or trying to cook more in my case. beautiful, beautiful. Or like playing guitar, or even just existing in that space felt refreshingly different just because it was a different place. And we had some fun too. It was really nice to change scenery, so we did it again. Next and final stop, Hot Springs, North Carolina. I kind of fell in love with Hot Springs. It was like this little haven, a tiny town, mostly on one street, with mountains all around and rivers running under bridges. The Appalachian Trail ran right through here. It was just beautiful. So naturally, we took to exploring. So we went and explored under this overpass and looked around the river, and little did I know I was about to get myself into a predicament. A very melodramatic predicament, but a predicament all the same. And yes, this is me walking straight into my doom. Basically. Alright, I'm just going to pause for a moment because in this moment I'm faced with a decision. And I could turn around or I could step onto the platform. And if I step onto the platform, I'm basically not going to be able to get down. So let's just see what happens.
Don't get attacked by that pigeon's nest.
Obviously, I stepped onto the platform because why wouldn't I? And then Cody had to come rescue me, so. So, his strategy was to throw rocks until one of them fell at a point that I could, step on it safely. And this was kind of an interesting process because I had to move out of the way so that I wouldn't get splashed, which kind of failed at some points. And it was pretty fun to watch. So, here's another time lapse of something weird that happened on this trip.
It's not for me to say you love.
And then I was saved. So it worked out in the end. We took advantage of the nearby mountains and set out to hike to Lover's Leap, depicted in this painting that we found in a local market. So we set off, and we found out that this trail was deemed difficult by the park. It said it's difficult.
Yeah.
You think we can do it?
Of course.
Maybe. We'll see. At least Cody believed in us, but there's only one way to find out if we could actually do it. The trail was a gradual ascent upward, and on the way, we found a lot of cool stuff. Like, we found these flowers, which I really liked, and this tree that was snapped in half. Look at that tree. But mostly we just found more mushrooms. So we'd been hiking for about 40 minutes when I started to get thirsty, and I checked my bag to realize that I'd forgotten water, which is generally a bad idea for hiking and just for life. But we figured that the trail wouldn't be that much longer, so we just decided to keep going. And then, not much further up the trail, we arrived to this spot. We saw the sign, so we figured the trail must continue up, but we decided to stop for a little bit and rest here. Quick what? Okay. So after checking this spot out, we decided to keep going up the trail even though we were out of energy because I forgot to bring water, and so we kept going. We even found this cute little camping area up the way, and another really pretty viewpoint.
Hey, gonna make this someday.
And so we climbed out onto the ledge to see, and it was absolutely gorgeous. At this point, there was some rain coming down, but there was sun, and that's like my favorite thing. It was incredible.
4,500 years ago, 4,500 years ago. That was painted on the rocks set here too.
Probably.
I wonder if they were just as tired as we were.
And then we climbed back and resumed our hike. At this point, we were looking for markings of the trail. The trail color was orange, so there were like trees with orange markings. We couldn't find them anywhere, so we just kept walking, and we were starting to sort of doubt that we were on the right path. But honestly, this was when, to me, I found the most beautiful part of all of this. This scene with the trail that's on the edge of the mountain and you can see off of it, and the light is making everything green glow, is so beautiful to me, and I'm so happy that I got to see it. But despite this place's absolutely breathtaking beauty, we were about at our physical limit. We were really tired and in need of water, and we were on top of this mountain, and we had to get down. I wasn't really sure if we'd found Lover's Leap, though. We'd never come across anything that was marked, and I was really confused as to where the trail had ended. So I was kind of sad about that, but we walked down the mountain and continued on our journey. This time, after descending for a little bit, we headed down a different trail. Cody assured me it would take us to the same place, and we'd get some different views. And as I'm sure you can guess, I thought the view was absolutely beautiful. Eventually, we had descended to ground level, and all that was left to do was get back to the town. And on our way back, we found this.
Do you remember that painting of Lover's Leap?
Yeah.
I think this is what it was.
I was really, really excited when I found this and matched it to the painting. I felt almost like an explorer that had found something based off an old map. It was really exciting to me, and I felt accomplished in a weird sort of way. I think above everything else, my favorite part of traveling is meeting people, and due to circumstances, that wasn't really an option for us most of the time, but we did manage to meet one person that really stood out to me. And we met her here, on our last day in Hot Springs and our last day of the trip. We ended up at the Spring Creek Tavern on our last day in Hot Springs so that we could get one last look at this wonderful town. A short moment after being seated at our table, a woman came over and introduced herself as our waitress. She immediately asked about my camera, and I immediately asked her if I could record her.
Oh, sweet. Yeah. Video.
Yeah, awesome.
Could you clap? Awesome. All right. Okay, do you have anything that you want to say to any viewers?
My name is Heather, and you guys have come to have, should I say, dinner and a nice, lovely appetizer and some ice water on the house.
All right.
With us here at the Spring Creek Tavern.
Awesome.
And I'm Heather. I was born and raised in this beautiful place, so I'm happy to have you guys here. And so far, this is not my beer. I'm putting it in the trash.
Heather was the absolute sweetest. She was just completely kind, and I decided to ask her what her favorite thing about the town was.
My favorite thing about Hot Springs is the creek, and so peaceful. Every time I go to the river, it takes my heart. There's something about that river and the sun shining off of the beautiful water. It just kind of helps me feel peaceful. Helps me know that everything's okay. We had a bad day. And I'm telling you, the rafting is amazing. It's so much fun. Oh my God. You guys gotta do that while you're picking.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you. Awesome.
That's my favorite part.
We unfortunately did not get to try the rafting on this trip, but this whole conversation just contributed to this feeling I'd had of just really loving this town. This whole encounter just solidified the welcoming atmosphere that this place had naturally, and it made it feel like this haven. We spent around 2 hours at the Spring Creek Tavern, and it was beautiful, honestly. We enjoyed it a lot. I would definitely recommend it to anyone in Hot Springs or even anyone near Hot Springs. It's worth going into town for. And to celebrate our last day, we had a bonfire that night. It took a while to get it to light, so I'll just skip you through that. That's weird. So this was one of those log things. It's like a fire starter that you buy at a store, and it was lighting properly and everything was working, but Cody seemed to think that it would go faster if he did this. Why?
I'm trying to get it to where it doesn't. There we go. Now I gotta do this to another side.
No! And I'm pretty sure it didn't help at all, but I don't think that was really the point. So we set up the fire and started to make s'mores, and I figured it was a good time to reflect. So what do you think you've learned from this trip?
Funny mushrooms grow often in hot springs. Marshmallows get sticky when they're in fire.
Would you do it again?
Definitely, I want to do it again.
How do you think it's going to be going back to normal?
Have fun. Got a lot of college stuff to do.
We both sat there in silence for a moment, and we looked at the fire, and I could tell we were both thinking about what we had to go back to. Cody had a lot of college stuff, but what did I have? Really, I had almost no obligations anymore, so what did that leave me with? All I had to return to was a house that had become like a cage, and I was dreading the return of the next day. And then I started to think about what I learned on this trip. I believe that every experience has a lesson, and I thought about this one. I realized that I'd really been stuck in my house because I thought that my life had been put on hold. I felt like I was waiting for the world to start again. But this was life, and this was the world. All the time I'd spent in Alabama, and all the time I'd spent in Hot Springs, and all the time I spent in my house was life. I decided to start treating it as such, to seek out adventure and the things that make life beautiful, while protecting myself and others. I decided it was possible. And so, under the starry sky with the bonfire and the s'mores, it was a good night. The next morning, we packed and began the journey back home. So I didn't really mention where we were staying this time. It was another little cabin. It was smaller, and it was right next to the train tracks. And as we were leaving, a train came by, and it was almost like to say goodbye to us. I don't know. I liked it. I love trains, so I was super excited about this. And after the train went by, we got in the car and said goodbye to Hot Springs. Bye, Hot Springs. Bye, house. Bye, railroad. See you soon.
Goodbye, steep hills.
Bye, steep hills. See you soon. I've been trying to reclaim my space since I got back, and make my house a more pleasant place to be for me. Like my back porch. It's very much a work in progress, but I've been trying to make it into a more welcoming space. I've also been going on walks in my neighborhood, because I think there's always possibility for exploration, and it's been pretty good. I'm really lucky I got to go on a safe road trip during this time. I know a lot of people wish they could travel right now and they can't, so I feel especially grateful that I got to do this. So, thank you to Alabama, thank you to Hot Springs, thank you to Cody, and thank you to all of you for watching.